As President Trump promises, April 2nd will bring additional reciprocal and sector-based tariffs. Small business owners are uncertain about the economic landscape. The National Federation of Independent Businesses Volatility Index hit its second highest recorded level ever. Here with more on what business owners can do, we've got Mark Valentino, who's the Citizens President and Head of Business Banking. Mark, good to have you here with us. So let's just start there. How can small business owners best offset or get ahead of any potential tariffs that might hit certain parts of their business?
Yeah, thanks, Brad, and great to be on again today. So first and foremost, small business owners must look at their supply chain right now and think about diversifying when they possibly can. So that could mean looking at countries that aren't under the tariff effect right now and trying to find supplies from those types of countries, or looking at domestic options here in the US to see if they can find potentially some cost savings on products made right here in America. Second, I would say have to look at your overall business model right now and your operating model. Are there other ways that you can take out costs from your business, knowing that you're actually going to incur larger costs through tariffs? And I would also add to that, looking at banks that might have cash management tools to help you make more sophisticated decisions around your business would be smart. And finally, I think small business owners right now should also look at kind of consolidating their relationships amongst many banks. If they have several banks right now, try to consolidate amongst one bank. And that might give them better negotiation power in terms of terms and conditions on things like lines of credit and loans. And right now would be a really smart time. If you're a small business with positive cash flow, would be a really smart time to put in place a line of credit or some form of debt facility, so that if costs really elevate on you, you know that you have some kind of dry powder to help survive this period of time.
How can small businesses invest in strategic growth even with this amount of uncertainty lingering?
Yeah, Brad, it's a great question, and it's unfortunate a little bit because after the election, we saw some of the most optimistic survey results coming in from small business owners. And now you fast forward just 3 months and you're starting to see really a decay in optimism, both in the consumer and in small business owners. And that, to your question, has resulted in small business owners starting to suspend some of their thought process around strategic investment. Again, I think everyone just needs to take a minute here and take a breath, look at your business operations and determine how much you are affected by this tariff impact. Look at your customer base. How much are your customers willing to absorb higher costs if they need to? And then really strategically kind of focusing on, are there other things I can do to kind of mitigate the impact of tariffs on my business that might be able to kind of bring my costs more in line? I do not think that small business owners should pause investment strategy right now, because ultimately that's going to set them back potentially several years against larger competitors. Another place to look at would be technology and things like AI, all the new tools that are rolling out so quickly, faster than we can even keep track. Are there technology tools or AI tools that can cause your business to become more efficient, that would allow you to have more confidence in making an investment right now than you otherwise would?
And so what are the top areas of investment for small businesses that we typically see? Is it labor? Is it enhanced product, or trying to work through some of the partnerships that they have? How should they be thinking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of all of the above. Most small businesses, when they get to kind of a profitability level, are thinking about ways to scale up. How can I take my kind of, let's say, one store model or one distribution point and enhance that and scale that across multiple points of distribution or sales? And so that's a combination of labor. It also includes things like technology spend. And so when you're dealing with higher costs on your supply chain and vendors, for example, you're less likely to make investments in technology because those are fairly substantial for a small business, right? You know, $100,000 technology investment for a small business would be a massive investment. And so I would say, as they think about ways to scale their business, now is really a time to look at their overall operating model and say, okay, we don't know how long these tariffs are going to be in place for. We don't know what kind of impact they're going to have over the long term on the consumer. Certainly optimism not looking very positive right now, but we haven't started to see the effects economically yet today. And so are there investments that you can make as you think about scaling your business that mitigate, increase sales, for example, and possibly mitigate that you might have a smaller operating margin than you otherwise would? And I think that last point is really important. Even though your operating margin may go down, you still might be profitable, even if you have to pass some cost on to the consumer. So a really smart thing to do right now, because you can't control these tariffs, right? A smart thing to do would be looking at how you could scale sales in a much larger way. So if you do have a smaller margin, at least you have much higher volume in sales.
Just lastly, while we have you here, Mark, and I know you have the pulse of small businesses and many of them looking for areas to be more efficient, more profitable as well. And on a technological basis, many of them are trying to ask themselves, how can I leverage things like artificial intelligence in order to kind of streamline some of the efforts or take out the mundane tasks from having to be a drag on my time?
Yeah, Brad, it's one of my favorite topics right now because we always talk about kind of the technology gap between larger customers or larger companies and smaller companies. And take the tariff issue aside, and we don't know how long that's going to persist, and it will probably harm small businesses much more than it's going to harm a larger kind of global company. But with that aside, I think one of the abilities that technology, and specifically AI, as you mentioned, is going to have on the future, it's really going to help equal the playing field a bit for smaller companies to play larger than they actually are. Because through AI tools, and specifically generative AI tools that are now coming out, smaller players in the marketplace are actually going to be able to do things at a much more efficient scale with less labor intensity than they've had to in the past. And so if you're a 5-person company, some of the AI tools out there right now will allow you to do marketing faster than you've ever done marketing before, PR, sales expansion, and all of these exciting things that you can do through kind of the multiplication of AI effects will actually, over the long term, allow smaller companies, I think, to be much more successful, especially in comparison to larger companies that have a lot more kind of dry powder to spend on technology.